now giving us the direct assessment of who has been infected, and as a result, for the little ones that have been tested, we have quite above 300 now that have tested positive as nurses in the country, both at the federal, state, and the local government level, even at the private hospital level. We have up to 300 now. Unfortunately, we have lost about 6 nurses.
Previously, there was a problem of adequate personal protective equipment available both for the health workers, the doctor and other health workers. But to a reasonable extent, that has been is being sorted out. The government have tried, and then individuals and organizations also tried in providing this protective personal equipment to the health doctors and the health workers. It's not easy putting on the face masks, face shield, and other things to be used, because some patients or people are asymptomatic, but they can also infect other people. So that has led to the increasing number of doctors or health workers coming down with COVID-19. Like at National Hospital, we have 24 doctors who have tested positive. 19 have been discharged, just 5 active cases, but 0 death. At University of Babylada Teaching Hospital, we have record of like 10 doctors that have tested positive, but no death. In Federal Medical Center, Abuja, we've just had like 6 doctors who tested positive. All have been discharged, but no death. Some of the death we have is from our colleagues from other in the peripheral hospitals, like our own dear Professor Lawson of Zankley Hospital, who came down with COVID-19, and unfortunately we lost him.
Noting that infection on the part of health workers creates a setback for the fight against the pandemic, they advise that adequate measures be put in place to avoid infections crossing to the health workers while carrying out their duties of caring and saving lives.
Other hospitals can copy what FMC Abuja have done by putting in place the monitoring team within, compliance team actually, that's what we call it, PPE compliance team.
The healthcare professionals has come together and we form the healthcare support, frontline healthcare support foundation. This one is to take care of the welfare of health workers, because who cares for the carer in Nigeria is only God.
Research reveals that to reduce risk, schools should make adjustments. Recommended safety measures include wearing face coverings in schools, limiting movement, and placing desks several feet apart is also advised. Cancelling assemblies, cafeteria meals, and other gatherings are other measures FCT schools have put in place to ensure safety. Chairman of the Secondary Education Board, the Federal Capital Territory Administration, says it is very concerned about the safety of students and teachers, and it is set to monitor every aspect of school reopening till all schools are covered.
It's a serious matter here in secondary education, because we are dealing with kids who actually requires attention. They are no longer with their family or parents. So we are their parents, we are their teachers, we are their doctors. We have actually everything in order to ensure that these kids are actually safe. In view of the COVID-19, for now, all sporting activities are suspended, assemblies are suspended, and social distancing will be strictly monitored and respected. So the resumption now is specifically for them to prepare for their examinations.
Chairman FCT Task Force Team on COVID-19 warned that any school accommodating students other than the JSS 3 and SS3 at this period will be acting contrary to government's directive and will face disciplinary action.
We may not be able to go around all single schools here, or we'll be going around the schools and ensuring that the 14 schools are properly called to order. The 14 schools are asked to do what is right, and should they refuse to do what is right here, then we'll be left with no option than to bring them before the mobile court. Subsequently, if we see that lives are threatened, we'll approach the court and seek for seal-up orders.
FCT Situation Room on COVID-19 is also making efforts to ensure that schools are given all needed attention and response.
We've been receiving calls since the announcement was made. Parents calling to express concern about the safety of their children when they go back to school, and we assure them that as far as FCT is concerned, they are going to get the best for their children. They shouldn't entertain any fear. And the Chairman Secretary Education Body took some journalists also around for them to see what has been done. They have designated some rooms in their schools as isolation center based on what the NCDC and Prime Minister of Education gave as guidelines to be followed. So all those protocols for FCT we are not going to have problem because the ministers are on top of the game.
The teachers are advised to take care of themselves and also take up role of enforcement and compliance to the COVID-19 protocols.
Since the country's index case was reported on 27 February this year, just 2 weeks before the World Health Organization declared coronavirus a pandemic, the federal government, through its ministries, departments and agencies, has been coordinating a multi-sectoral response for the country through various programs and interventions.
What the PTF, who Mr. Boss was about the SGF, who stood in for President Muhammadu Buhari, had said very clearly, is that we cannot fight COVID-19 as well as not grow the economy. And that may be why the interstate travel ban was lifted for persons to actually move goods, persons to actually move and do business adequately.
Government says, okay, you have a small car, fine. You have to carry one person in front, two behind, with you, making 4 people in that vehicle.
The first point of able passengers when boarding transportation to their destination is the bus stop or motor park. Some passengers say there is a need to enforce compliance for passengers that have continued to violate the laid down directives.
Some put face mask, most doesn't.
Yes, they comply. 2 at the back and one at the front with no marks.
The National Union of Road Transport Workers, NURTW, on their part, promised continuous sensitization of their members, especially the drivers, to adhere to COVID-19 protocols.
We are distributing all this to all our motor parks across the nation.
Directorate of Road Traffic Services and Abuja Environmental Protection Board says mobile court activities have helped in enforcing the Presidential Task Force Directive on COVID-19.
People and commuters, as well as the community generally, need to take more responsibility. Our personnel used to go around to ensure that these garages at least have running water.
Since we have started the COVID-19 prosecution under the APB mobile court, it's been very, very effective because of the fact that we have to carry out some enforcement measures.
Information gotten from authorities indicate that over 26,000 road transport violators have so far been convicted at various mobile courts in the Federal Capital Territory.
Beautiful places, and Abuja is beautiful. Together we can make it even more beautiful. Thank you for being a part of this program today. Join us next week for another interesting episode. From me, Rahab, it is bye for now.
If it be like say you know well, like it's something they do you, and you feel say you believe say you get a seed they do you, and your body no grisogy, like it's something they do you. No let panic finish you. You go win all.
place that unites Nigeria.
She cries. She cries in anguish and in pain. She bears the scourge of her grief. She toils in vain for justice and succumbs to silence. He gloats over his malady. Like a beast, he pounces with no remorse. Her cry means nothing. Her pain feeds her shame. Like an orphan, she's left to grieve in solitude. But no more will she cry in vain. Her adversaries will henceforth bear the brunt of their cruelty. Rape is evil. Rape is a plague, a pandemic of monumental consequences. We must unite and kick it out of our society.
Connect with NTA and stand against rape and rapists. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Anybody who is exposed can contract coronavirus, but not everybody has a fair chance of surviving the disease. Data has shown that older persons stand a higher risk of dying. Are you 55 years and above? Do you have pre-existing health conditions? Please safeguard yourself and minimize your risk. Observe all COVID-19 protocols.
If you hear of anyone with high fever, dry cough, and difficulty in breathing, please do not go near such a person because they could be a victim of coronavirus infection. Call someone else or the NCDC to assist. Please use your prescribed medications regularly. Exercise around your home and eat well so that you can remain healthy and strong. For an older adult, to beat coronavirus is not to contract it at all.
This message is brought to you by Gerontology Association of Nigeria, the Geriatrics Association of Nigeria, and Dave Mokoro Foundation in conjunction with the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
It depends.
President Buhari to attend one-day ECOWAS summit in Niamey, Niger Republic.
Armed forces on red alert to combat crime. Defense headquarters assures Nigerians.
Minister of Labor and Employment kicks against proposed strike by resident doctors.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss the increase in electricity tariff.
Increase in electricity tariff has always been a contentious issue in Nigeria, especially as the nation is yet to enjoy the luxury of 24 hours of uninterrupted power supply.
Now, this is why the latest electricity tariff increase from about 30 naira to 62 naira for 1 kilowatt unit of energy per hour, as approved by the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, is already generating so much hue and cry as to the rationale for the increase.
Now, NEC, which is the chief regulator, is arguing that the increase has ushered in a service-based tariff regime where electricity consumers who receive the highest quality of service, say 12 to 24 hours per day, will pay the highest tariff, while consumers who get under 12 hours of service per day will continue paying their current tariff.
Whatever that means, Kirian, now it's not going down well with Nigerians, as those who used to purchase, say, 39 units of electricity for 1,000 naira now purchase 37 units, which is 2 units lesser, and this is going for 2,000 naira. Now, in rejecting the tariff hike, organized labor says the hike will inflict further pains on Nigerians at a time of great economic distress occasioned by the coronavirus pandemic.
Now, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, while justifying the tariff hike, however, notes that distribution companies known as DISCOs will only be able to review tariff rates upwards after due consultations with consumers and based on improved quality of service in terms of the number of hours of electricity supply per day.
But feelers from the public indicate that while there has been a reported increase in power generation in the country, even though at the weekend there was a report that some 13 of the power generation companies were not operational. And of course, the increase has been to the efforts of the current administration. There has, however, been no corresponding or remarkable improvement in power supply within the distribution chain. Moreover, a majority of Nigerians have also not been metered and are still subjected to what many describe as the outrageous estimated bills by the DISCOs.
Now, so who were the consumers consulted when they were consulted a tariff hike, and to what time did they give their blessing? Will the latest increase solve the electricity challenges in Nigeria?
Very pertinent questions you raised there, Kirian, and we have a panel of guests to respond to those issues and more in our conversation segment this morning. My name is Kingsley Osadolo, and I welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA, and we are broadcasting from the nation's capital, Abuja.
Well, I am Kirian Umaye, joining Kingsley to welcome you again to this particular edition of Good Morning Nigeria on a bright Monday morning. And we're also going to serve you the usual complimentary segments of the program because of the time period for the entire show. And of course, we have this morning Ifeoma Ojenta, who is the anchor person for the morning news highlights. Hello, Ifeoma.
Hello, Kirian and Kingsley. Here is the morning news. President Muhammadu Buhari will depart Abuja today for Niamey, Niger Republic, to participate in the 57th ordinary session of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government. A statement from the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, indicates that the one-day summit will deliberate on the special report on COVID-19 to be presented by President Buhari, who was appointed the ECOWAS champion on the fight against COVID-19 during the extraordinary virtual summit of ECOWAS on April 23, 2020. The summit will also receive a special report on the ECOWAS single currency program and deliberate on the alarming rise in incidents of terrorism, insurgency, armed banditry and piracy. The disruption of democratic process by the military in Mali will receive further attention at the summit. President Buhari will be accompanied to the summit by ministers and other top government officials and will return to Abuja after the meeting. The Defense Headquarters is reassuring residents of the FCT and other adjoining states that the armed forces and other security agencies have been on red alert to combat crime and ensure effective surveillance of the Federal Capital Territory and other states of the country. A statement to that effect followed a purported memorandum from the Nigeria Customs Service warning its staff of a possible attack on the FCT. The armed forces of Nigeria, working together with other security and response agencies, particularly the core intelligence agencies, hereby assure the general public that preventive and preemptive intelligence are ongoing, and thus the general public is advised to go about their lawful businesses undeterred. The statement adds that the armed forces of Nigeria and other security agencies will not hold back offensive against the common enemies of the nation until normalcy is restored in all parts of the country. Now, the attention of the Minister of Labour and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige, has been drawn to the proposed strike action by members of the National Association of Resident Doctors. In a statement, the minister notes that in 3 conciliatory meetings, the NMA attested to the fact that 6 out of the 8 demands listed by the group have been addressed comprehensively and satisfactorily. Dr. Ngige reminds the National Association of Resident Doctors that it is against labor laws and ILO conventions for parties in conciliation over any issue to employ arm-twisting methods. The minister noted that the association already has pending cases in court and should respect the laws and withdraw the ultimatum issued to its members to down tools with effect from Monday, September 7, 2020. And for an update on COVID-19, Nigeria's COVID-19 caseload is now 55,005, as the Nigeria Center for Disease Control confirmed 100 new cases on Sunday, the lowest daily statistics in more than 4 months. The 100 new cases were recorded in 10 states, with Lagos having 39, FCT 22, Kaduna 19, Oyo 7, Ebonyi 6, Edo 3, while Katsina, Ekiti, Bauchi and Nasarawa reported just a case each. On the state's case chart, Lagos leads with 18,347 cases, followed by the FCT with 5,301 cases, while Oyo is third with 3,194 cases. Out of Nigeria's 55,005 confirmed COVID-19 cases, 43,013 recovered cases have been discharged, leaving 10,935 active cases, while the death toll is now 1,057. Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadia Umar Farouk, has expressed the federal government's commitment to continue to devise means of reaching out to IDPs through the provision of relief items to areas that are not accessible. The minister stated this during the demonstration of food distribution by helicopters via parachutes by the military in Maiduguri.
This airdrop is possible. We can drop this food to areas that we cannot access by road or because of some other challenges. I think that's the most important thing, for this food to get to the targeted beneficiaries. And there's going to be air surveillance anyway, and we are going to mark those locations.
The Southeast Governors Forum's Committee for Rehabilitation of Akano Ibiam International Airport has expressed satisfaction with the quality of works in the first phase of the airport's rehabilitation project and the speed of progress in phase 2 of the project. The committee stated this during an interactive session with journalists to throw more light on the scope, status of works and major accomplishments at the airport.
The first phase of the project was then to be the runway, which was awarded to PW as a turnkey contract, which included the airfield lighting. There were also some other second phases of this project, and this is the Emergency Operations Center.
And that's the morning news. The program continues with Kinsley and Kirian after this break.
She cries in anguish and in pain. She bears the scourge of her grief. She toils in vain for justice and succumbs to silence. He gloats over his malady. Like a beast, he pounces with no remorse. Her cry means nothing. Her pain feeds her shame. Like an orphan, she's left to grieve in solitude. But no more will she cry in vain. Her adversaries will henceforth bear the brunt of their cruelty. Rape is evil. Rape is a plague, a pandemic of monumental consequences. We must unite and kick it out of our society.
Connect with NTA and stand against rape and rapists. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Moments can be ordinary. It's what we make of them that really matter. Make the best of every moment, every day, like super moms do with Indomie. Moments to laugh with Indomie. Moments to learn with Indomie. Moments to care with Indomie. Moments to share with Indomie. Moments like no other to appreciate.
Super moms create special family moments with their love. Celebrate these delicious moments with Indomie noodles. Indomie noodles, tasty nutrition, good for you.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Coming up next is business news with Comfort Amodu.
Like this ogbono when we dey sell, it don't affect am. The way when we dey buy the mudu before, 3,000 naira. As they buy and down, then when motor no gree carry come, we dey buy and 3,500 now.
The current economic challenge brought about by the coronavirus pandemic calls for innovative ways to boost Nigerians' economy as well as improving the living standard of the populace. This is a submission of some experts who advocate climate change adaptation to harness economic potentials.
Save 80% of 1.5 million mature trees that a family consumes in Nigeria. So if 12.5 million households in Nigeria that depend strictly on wood mass right now to cook their food, if we can take 12 million cook stove and give to each of these households, and each of them is capable of saving about maybe 87 to 100 tons of carbon per year. If you multiply that by 12 point something million, you know what I'm talking about. China posted $27 billion from application of climate change adaptation technologies locally.
Meanwhile, the Federal Inland Revenue Service has launched a new automatic exchange of information common reporting standard system for the use of financial institutions in the country. Executive Chairman FIRS Mohamed Naimi urged reporting financial institutions under the Income Tax Regulations 2019 to enroll on the portal. The FIRS Chairman says the portal is open and active. As part of enrollment process, each reporting financial institution is required to designate an appropriate officer as primary user. With business news, Comfort Amodu.
Many thanks, Comfort, for that business package. Newspaper review is next on Good Morning Nigeria.
Three newspapers this morning to take a look at. We have the Nation newspaper, we also have Daily Trust and the Nigerian Pilot. Let's take a look at the front page of the Nation newspaper above the name flag. 24 die as flood sweeps through Jigawa with a rider, 51 families homeless. Why NWC, that's the National Working Committee, was dissolved, according to APC, and party criticizes suit. Details can be found on page 8. Top 7 banks grossed 1.77 trillion naira in 6 months. Details are in the business section of the paper, and what Kogi should expect in my second term by Bello. Edo 2020, Izeyamu to reverse neglect of traders. I will defeat Oshomole in his world, Shaibu boasts. APC youths allege attack by thugs at Eastern Central, and PDP urges INEC and security agencies to be neutral. Details can be found on page 34. Panic and red alert in Abuja over Boko Haram camps. Leaked memo causes anxiety. Defense headquarters and police to members of the public were on top of the situation. Those are the writers of that headline. Subsidy removal, a tough decision, says presidency. That's on the front page there with a continuation on page 5. Malami, Attorney General of the Federation, Nigeria didn't make $200 million cash deposit on P&ID. You have a double on there, take one out. Nigeria didn't make $200 million cash deposit on P&ID. And on page 6, right at the foot of the front page, that's the headline intro. It says, gunmen killed 3, abduct 7 in Kaduna attacks. Sorry, it's inside. Carry on.
All right, the Daily Trust newspaper for this morning. Terror alert, fear grips FCT residents. Defense headquarters urges vigilance. It's on page 6. History will be kind to Buhari over subsidy removal. It's on page 6 as well. And the CBN raises target credit to 100 billion naira for MSMEs. That's on page 19. Now, COVID-19, millions of children at risk of measles, polio due to vaccination disruptions. While we shun immunization centers, mothers, lockdown keeps PHCs inaccessible. Healthcare agency, immunization key to protecting children, experts. Now, below the photo story of an immunization taking place there, they say that FG spends 5 billion naira monthly on IDPs, according to Senate panel. 2 feared dead as IPOB attacks household residents in Rivers. On page 10, Ethiopian Airlines resumes Abuja, Lagos flights. 18, Nigerians flay Naira rain at Buhari's daughter's wedding. That's on page 38.
Okay, Kira, there are a number of stories on the front pages of the 2 papers that we have read. Panic and red alert in Abuja over Boko Haram camps. There was quite some anxiety in the Federal Capital Territory at the weekend over a memo attributed to the Nigeria Customs Service advising the staff of the alleged presence of terrorists in and around the Federal Capital Territory, with claims that they were most likely going to launch attacks on the Federal Capital Territory, parts of Nasarawa and Kogi State. But the Defense Headquarters has reassured members of the public that the military authorities are on top of the situation.
Okay, now, being on top of the situation is one thing. Another is to ensure that those, ungoverned,
the camps that they have set up.
The camps, yes, and in some forests they were named. Have different forests across from Kaduna area, Niger State, Kogi State, Nasarawa, and the rest. So if those ungoverned forests are not monitored closely, are not surveyed, closely, there may be the possibility of them finding their way wherever they want to attack. The guys they have a way of planning their attacks, and they're planning so solidly, and for you to avert what they're going to do, then you have to have a kind of a super plan, that could ensure that whatever they have is afraid. That's my own view about it. But again, of course, as military people, they can always assure you, of them being ready. I'm sure they are properly equipped at this moment, to deal with any kind of insurgency in the FCT.
Well, that's fine. The point has been made that I think it must have been last week or the week before, the security agencies flushed out some bandits or criminal in Nasarawa State, and I think that was one of the camps that they had set up. But the question is, when do these camps begin to grow? What happens? A camp doesn't just drop from the sky, Kirian. It takes a while, and this is again, it points to the need for prior intelligence and then acting promptly on those intelligence sources. And we also saw what happened in Kagara last week. That's the headquarters of a local government area in Niger State, where alleged bandits stormed the town, raiding, robbing, and killing persons and even abducting others. And Niger, of course, is next door here to the Federal Capital Territory. But the assurance is fine in the first instance, and we do hope that they will follow up accordingly and flush out the elements wherever they may be, not just in the Federal Capital Territory, but in other locations.
Right in the forest there.
That's right.
Where they have the fight to them, right, and get them disorganized, because if you allow them to plan, they have a way of planning well, and they're executing well as well. I mean, based on their historical antecedents, across the nation.
Yeah, it's significant that for many years now, Boko Haram has not had a presence or even an attack in the Federal Capital Territory, in Abuja itself. I mean, we recall what happened in 2011 when the police headquarters was attacked, when the UN building here in Abuja was also attacked. We saw what happened in 2014 at Yanya, and then we also saw what happened at a shopping complex in Wuse too. All those were the signature marks of Boko Haram attacks in Nigeria's Capital Territory. But there's been a tremendous pushback against the insurgents, and their footprints has not been anywhere found in the Federal Capital Territory. And we hope that it remains so. Now, Kirian, there was some heartwarming news at the weekend, and part of that story is what you have on the front page here of the Nation newspaper. And it says, Malami, that's the kicker, Nigeria didn't make $200 million deposit on P&ID. If you recall, Nigeria has been seeking a reversal of the arbitral award to a firm known as P&ID, which was supposed to have been involved in some gas supply transaction, which the allegation is that it is tainted with fraud because the company didn't have the capacity, and as the presidency has indicated, they were only after the assets of the nation, wherever those assets are located abroad. And they have a $9.6 billion judgment credit in their favor. Now, the heartwarming news is that the High Court in England has now given Nigeria leave to appeal. Nigeria was already out of time to appeal, and it said for public policy consideration, considering also that a prima facie case of fraud had been established against P&ID and indeed the entire contract, Nigeria, of course, will be granted leave to appeal the arbitral award. Now, this is the critical point, in my opinion. If the court decided to adopt the usual technical approach that we have found in our jurisdiction in recent years, obviously Nigeria would have lost this case, and it would have said, look, the time delimited for you to appeal has passed, and so now you are bound by the judgment of the court, and therefore you have to pay the arbitral award. Nearly $10 billion. I mean, which country is going to pay that and not have a hole in his pocket? Now, the court, yes.
There should be flexibility.
That flexibility derived from the application of the public policy jurisprudence.
Exactly.
I mean, Kirian, on this program, we have discussed on several occasions, we have seen how election cases have been turned on technicalities, even though the argument is that, election cases are sui generis. But the point is, we keep talking about technicalities, and here is one clear instance where the courts have said, look, this is not a matter of technicality.
Yes.
It's a question of public policy. The issue is tainted with fraud, and so you will get a leave as a country to appeal against this humongous judgment.
Is involved. And down here in Nigeria, many cases have been lost based on technicalities.
That's right.
And I'm sure there's no way the law, reverses such judgment to say, look, give this judgment a chance once again. Let's see what actually transpired. But when they say, look, if you're supposed to bring a case up in 14 days and you waited up to the 15th day, you have lost that case.
That's right.
Without the judge sitting on it. So it's just a matter of flexibility and the possibility of the practitioners to ensure that the flexibility is extended to all types of,
deserving cases. Especially where you find elements of fraud. I mean, fraud is a vitiating factor in contracts. But the point is, as you just said, Kirian, if for whatever reason, whatever tangible reason, an appellant is unable to file an appeal within the time delimited for it, would you allow somebody else to then profit from that technical lapse? And we have seen cases of persons winning elections on the basis of judicial decisions when, in fact, on the field, they had actually lost out. So that's a very significant development there that Nigeria, of course, is happy now that it has an opportunity to pursue this case to its logical conclusion and seek a reversal of that arbitrary award.
Completely an arbitrary award, because the sum of money they are requesting from Nigeria, of course, will really dislodge our financial base if we have to pay that kind of amount of money. In a case they went and established on their own, coming back home to Nigeria, the way the manner the contract was signed was personable. I mean, you cannot do such a contract in Nigeria without the Attorney General of the Federation, for instance, was not there, and the number of other persons who occupied very vital offices that were supposed to be at the meeting where the contract was awarded. So it would have been in fact, it's the rules. The entire thing is the rules, if you ask me, based on what we have read on newspapers regarding the way the contract was really put together, before the company took it away to sue Nigeria in England.
All right. Basically, I think those are the leading stories that we would like to discuss this morning. Kira, we'll take a look. The editorial is from the Nigerian Pilot newspaper.
Yes, and he's talking about Ghana-Nigeria impasse and the need for diplomatic caution. We recall that last week or so, the Speaker of the House of Reps tried kind of parliamentary diplomacy that took him to Ghana to meet with his counterparts in Ghana. I'm sure the result of that has yielded some dividends. I wouldn't know exactly what it was, but then they have sat and perhaps reached some agreements. I don't know whether the agreements are already...
Again, another heartwarming development. The Speaker of Nigeria's House of Representatives led the delegation of some federal lawmakers to Ghana, and they met with the Speaker of the Ghanaian Parliament. The interactions were widely reported. Part of the outcome of that interaction is seeking to deal with what Nigeria refers to as the harassment of Nigerian traders in Ghana. It's a report that the Ghanaian authorities would now reconsider the requirement of ~1 million naira minimum capital base for any foreign investor, no matter the size of your business.
Yes,
it's been $1 million. That's not been. It's been stated that they will review that, but the extent of the review has again also not been specified. But happily, Nigeria and Ghana have hit the path of diplomatic engagement on this particular issue, and we do hope that there will be faithful adherence to the agreement arising from the interaction between the speakers of the two countries' parliaments. All right, so that's it for our newspaper review segment this morning. We're taking a short break now. When we return, we'll get ahead with the item for discussion.
NTA TV College JOS, an affiliate of Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, is currently admitting students for its ordinary diploma programs in television journalism, television production, and television engineering. Interested candidates are advised to obtain relevant information concerning eligibility at our website at www.ntatvc.edu.ng or marketing department of any NTA station nationwide. For further information, contact Assistant Director, Marketing, NTA TV College JOS on 0803-314-4383 or the Academic Office of the College on 0806-980-9807. Announcer, Registrar.
And Kara shopping with the right place, boy.
That one no fine.
No, it's too dull.
This one.
Oh wow, it's beautiful.
Omo, this fabric. You go fade though. Yeah. Look, make I tell you something. The new area Ankara, it go take good care of it.
No, right.
like. Not true.
And the price, cheap. Try new Ariel on your Ankara and colors now.
Close Up Deep Action with antibacterial formula and deep cleaning gel keeps your teeth clean and protected. Close Up Deep Action. Enjoy long-lasting fresh breath and more.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, the network service of the NTA. Our conversation this morning is on the increase in electricity tariff, and to lead us into the discussion, here is a background report by
From the days of the National Electric Power Authority to the Power Holding Company of Nigeria to when the power sector was privatized into Gencos and Discos, hike in electricity tariff has always been a contentious issue. Electricity consumers are now faced with almost 100% increment in electricity tariff, which took place since September 2nd. The Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission emphasized that the decision was taken since consumers mostly demand better quality of service no matter the cost during public hearings conducted nationwide. The commission said it consequently increased electricity tariff after a scrutiny of applications filed by the discos and taking into consideration the outcome of the public consultations held in February and March. A proviso, however, stipulates that consumers experiencing an average power supply availability of less than 12 hours per day over a period of 1 month will not be part of the new order. The Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission has also assured that it plans to ensure that prices are fair to consumers, insisting that the new guidelines will provide a path to transition to full service-based cost-reflective tariff by July 2021. The discos have separately reacted to the latest development, with the Kaduna Electricity Distribution Company saying consumers under Band A who enjoy a minimum of 20 hours of power supply are expected to pay 56 naira per kilowatt, while customers on Band B with minimum of 16 hours supply shall pay 54 naira per kilowatt, while the residential consumer of Ikeja Electric on single phase receiving a minimum of 12 hours of supply will pay 42 naira 73 kobo per kilowatt, up from 21 naira 30 kobo per kilowatt. The organized labor and ordinary Nigerians have unequivocally taken a stand against the increment, arguing that Nigeria is still battling with the challenges occasioned by COVID-19. The questions that expressly demand answers are: will the increment solve the electricity problems in Nigeria? Do all stakeholders, including the regulating body, the distribution companies and consumers, require more consultations to reach a compromise? Expect answers to these and many more questions on Good Morning Nigeria in a moment.
All right, many thanks there for that backgrounder. With us in the studios now to discuss these issues in further detail, we'd like to welcome Mr. Oyebode Fadikbe, who is General Manager, Corporate Communications of the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company. Mr. Fadikbe, a pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be on the program this morning.
Also here with us, we'd like to welcome Rumu Daka Wanodi, who is the Pioneer Managing Director of the Nigerian Electricity Bulk Trading PLC, and currently CEO of ZKJ Energy Partners. Mr. Wanodi, a pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Well, we also have in the studio here Prince Rulo Korea, a power sector analyst and national president, Association for Public Policy Analysis. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
All right, gentlemen, once again,
I didn't mention that he's the national coordinator of Electricity Consumer Protection Education Program. Welcome once again.
Thank you very much.
All right, gentlemen, once again, I'd like to have you. Let's begin with Mr. Oyebode Fadikbe. This will be by way of amplification of what we already heard in the background report by our correspondent.
Especially, via Skype, of course, we have Dr. Sam Amadi. Dr. Sam Amadi actually is the former chairman, Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. Dr. Amadi, you're welcome to the program. Sorry we didn't deliberately want to leave you out. You're most welcome.
Thank you.
All right, as I said, we'll begin the conversation with Mr. Oyebode Fadekpe, and by way of amplification of what we listened to a while ago in the background report by our correspondent. Mr. Fadekpe, of course, you don't represent all of the discos you hear, so in terms of proximity, you are within reach for us. But tell us, what does this whole new tariff mean? Because we're hearing all kinds of consequences and implications. And the fact that there have been angry reactions should say something about the acceptability or otherwise of it.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm sorry, I have, maybe as a result of speaking so much about the tariff, my voice is becoming suspect, but I'm sure viewers out there will hear me. Thank you very much for the question. I think part of the problem why there's so much noise is because all customers think that all of them are affected. I think the first thing we need to state very clearly is that this tariff is not affecting all customers. Taking Abuja, as you rightly said, we are close to you, so we have the opportunity of also speaking on behalf of our colleagues who are in the 10 other discos all over the country. For AEDC, for instance, we have 44% that is not affected. And those are the ones in the band D and E category, below 12 hours, like the background report did state. And what is the basis of this? Okay, before I get to that place, then you have 56% who are affected. There are 5 bands. Band A, 20 hours and above. Band B, 16 hours, but not up to 20 hours, 16 hours and above. Band C, 12 hours, but not up to 16 hours. Then you have band D and E, 12 hours and below. Those who are in the 12 hours and below have had their tariff frozen. In other words, no kobo has been added to it for now, until we can bring investment to that area so that they too can ramp up in terms of consumption level to that point where you can say they can enjoy 12 hours and above. So for now, it's not all electricity customers all over the country, as you have in AEDC, that will be affected by this tariff review. And the reason behind it is also very clear and is deliberate. One, the economic reality, the global economic reality is a fundamental factor. Two is the fact that what is the level of investment of the discos in those locations? For instance, let's be in AEDC environment, for instance, let's talk about customers in our Karu, Mararaba, one-man village. That axis, it's a major axis of concern for us. And thank God, transmission is doing a major facility in Nasarawa State that will help us terminate the evacuation of power supply from Apo to that axis so that we can backfeed and then be able to separate the lines. By so doing, more power will become available to that area. So, again, it speaks to our own moral conscience. Can we truthfully say that we have really attended to that area? If we have not attended to them as much as we have attended to other parts of our network, I think it's only morally fair that we also don't push up their tariff at this moment. Not because there is a discrimination in cost of production. No, that's not the reason. And I'm happy that I'm sitting with a highly respected and power sector gentleman, and of course, Dr. Amadi. These ones can corroborate whatever we are saying, sir. Thank you very much.
All right, let's go to Comrade Prince Will Korea, National President Association for Public Policy Analysts and the coordinator of electricity analysis and the Electricity Consumer Protection Education Program. Now, you have listened to his explanation as to why the increase and the categorization of who gets what. All right, so would you just come in here and let our viewers know what the consumers are thinking about the explanation that actually precipitated, the increase as it were?
Honestly, my first concern is I'm surprised that no member of the current NEC management is here. It bothers me oftentimes when we talk about electricity and consumers, especially in the media, and you don't see management of the current NEC present. In the first place, the AEDC that we are using is in an urban environment. Nigeria, you have 774 local government areas in 36 states, out of which majority of the consumers are at the rural areas at the local government and the states. What is their feeling about this? Let me give you an example. The category D and E that my friend mentioned here, the people at the rural areas have been paying more than what they should pay. As I speak with you now, we are intervening for 3 communities in Imo State. One of them, Omodagon Mbiri community, are being told that they are owing 21 million naira. A local community. What are they doing? And how was the bill generated? At that level, the major problem here is not even the increase in tariff, but the sincerity of NEC in monitoring compliance of the discos with regards to the regulations that has to do with protecting consumers. For instance, how do discos generate the bills? Because since 2016, they prohibited bulk billing. If you go to areas where Enugu Electricity Distribution Company is operating, bulk billing is still existing everywhere. Now, how do they comply? You are now looking at the situation where the average consumer is forced to pay more than what he should pay. So the idea that they won't be affected, they're already being affected. There's a community that is told they are owing 5 million. Now, in ab initio, they were supposed to have meter on the transformers. But go to these rural areas, no transformer on most meters. 90% of the transformers don't have any meter. So how do they regulate or confirm the quantity of energy that these people are using that is making them give them this estimated billing, the way they are giving them the billing? Are the billings that are given to people at that level, I'm talking about D and E now, that they are saying will not be affected. As I speak with you today, why has NEC not done consumer enumeration and energy audits at the community areas? Why is it that you don't have coordinating team at the local government and the states where these monies are paid? So as far as I'm concerned, the tariff increase is not the issue here. As far as we are concerned in our organization, the issue here is NEC, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, being committed enough to really give enough concern to consumer protection. Like what AEDC said here. We sometimes took them up in Buhari Area Council. People that even got meters, we are disconnected from their meters and we are forced to pay on estimation until we intervened and began to write petition before they could now provide meter for about 30 persons that had applied. How many years ago? Now you look at, again, the consumer complaints. The system NEC set up. They said the consumer will first complain to the consumer complaints unit after 10 or 15 working days before they will escalate it to NEC forum office. Within this period, we wrote a complaint on behalf of some consumers. A week after the disco got the complaint, they disconnected the communities. They are there in darkness for over 2 weeks now. Yet, they are the people that said if a bill is under contention, the consumer can pay the last agreed bill and will not be made to pay the one the disco is compelling them to pay. What the disco is doing to these people who are in darkness now is compelling them to come and sign undertaking to pay more than what they should have paid. And then we're asking them, how have you been able to generate these bills you're asking these people to pay? Where is the transparent approach that you are using to generate these bills? And then you're subjecting these people to debt, which they did not justifiably incur.
All right. Thank you very much, Comrade Princewell. You've raised a number of important points. And just to inform our viewers that we had invited NEC, that is the Electricity Regulatory Commission, to be part of this conversation, but they indicated that regrettably they will be unavailable this morning to join the conversation. So we'll take it along with the comments already being expressed by our guests. We still have 2 of them here with us. Earlier, we introduced Dr. Sam Amadi, himself a former chairman of NEC. Dr. Sam Amadi, I'm not asking you to be a spokesperson for the current NEC, but there is something I would like you to take up from in terms of your response to the new order. We used to hear that the discos were asking for what they refer to as cost-reflective tariff. Cost-reflective tariff. Now, they have framed this as service-based tariff. I wouldn't know if Samamade is still there, or I'm sorry, I understand that we've lost him. Okay, as his Skype is frozen. All right, so but let's come back to our studios here. One of the former MD of NBET, which is very critical in the electricity value chain. Actually, you as a bulk electricity trader, you were supposed to bear the brunt, as it were, the financial brunt of the interface between the GENCOs and the DISCOs. And that remains a critical point in the measures that the DISCOs have adopted now to say, look, we want to raise more revenue, and there are all kinds of issues. The GENCOs are complaining. But in the mix of electricity value chain, what's your reaction to this tariff that has just been slapped on Nigerians?
Well, thank you very much. First thing first is that for the industry, investments are needed to be made. Operators need to be held accountable. And to the extent that the distribution companies at times we say that they do not have cost-reflective tariff, it makes sense to provide that in a way that actually minimizes the effect on most people. So you have the graduated way of transition to that cost-reflective tariff by keeping some tariff frozen. But maybe Dr. Sam could talk about issues of accountability. How do you hold someone accountable if he says that this is what he requires to make the investment, then you cannot hold the DISCOs accountable. And at the end of the day, the shortfall that comes will be paid by government, and at the same time, DISCOs are saying that, well, we don't have what it takes. But on the issue of cost-reflective tariff and service-reflective tariff, I've held the view that the tariff is meaningless if it has no utility. And the utility can only come when you know how many hours of electricity you're getting for what you're paying. The next level that we need to go to is actually having the distribution companies saying this is 12 hours and when will the 12 hours come to you, so that people can start planning. The idea of giving people meters to put electricity in their homes when they are not home makes no sense, right? So this is accountability. The next thing that needs to happen is for the DISCOs to tell us exactly the locations where you have 16 hours, 20 hours, so that the people will know, and then they begin to tell us when. So I think for accountability, the idea of service reflective tariff makes sense, because saying that there is a cost to it, and at the end of the day, I don't know when it comes, is meaningless to people. And on the issue of banking the sector, this year alone, electricity tariff shortfall is supposed to be about 540 billion naira. 540 billion naira. You check it, it might actually be higher than the health budget for the country. So at the end of the day, this subsidy is going to the rich. The people who consume so much electricity and are paying the same thing. If you live in Maitama, you're paying the same thing with people in Karu for the same product, and you're consuming a lot of that. So it's a way to take out the subsidy. The question that most people should ask is, when you take out this subsidy, government, where are you putting it? Are you using it to make the life of the people who need health, education better? Because taking it out from the rich is where you spend it in the alternative. And if it's not there, what else are you cutting down on the side of government to make it fair and more efficient for consumers?
Yeah, well explained. We hope to see what happens when all of that is articulated and put in place. Amadi is on now via Skype, and we would like you to share your own view concerning the current situation where there is an increase in tariff, and several reasons have been given for that. Those are for, some are against. In your understanding, as a former DG of NEC, is there any reasonability in what has happened? If yes, how does it impact, on the electricity power chain, or in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you very much. First, there's always never a good time to increase tariff anywhere in the world because the implication of tariff increase is essentially that there could be a general price increase, which has impact on livelihood. But again, policy is about making hard choices. And so I thought when I was chairman of NEC, we increased tariff twice. It's always a hard sell. But what's not happening now is that, like Prince Ware said, I think the government, the policy and regulatory managers are not doing their best to improve public perception of this tariff. It's called a service level tariff, which means it's predicated on some degree of service improvement. The public need to know and see what is going to improve when. Again, I support that the market design that tariffs will increase or decrease depending on what happens to the cost of production and other variables, inflation rate, foreign exchange, cost of gas, and even quantity availability. So, and then losses, the level of losses and efficiency in the sector. Regulation is both a science and an art. The science is that the formula is clear. You know what to input. You know the price, whether you're using cost plus, whether you're using price cap, whether you're using all forms of formula. So that's the science of it. But the art of it is making a decision around many variables, socioeconomic issues. For example, this is a pandemic. And the idea of a pandemic globally is that governments are spending more. We are now to what we call Keynesian economics, meaning that the public sector is trying to shore up production and help with companies, their asset base, help them with revenue, help them even with coverage of cost. So we've seen federal government release stimulus to help industries. We've seen attempt to help households improve their income and mitigate the impact of the COVID and of course, the recession. So a price increase, no matter how justified, and this one is justified because there have been so much, the debt build-up is high, revenue shortfall is much, and the discos and other operators are not receiving maybe the cost of their production. But the critical issue then is what this will cost to the general government policy in terms of helping households survive the COVID. That's the crisis here now, because you are talking about people losing jobs, you're talking about people losing income. Some people are under 70-30% pay. Houses are being, people are losing their houses. So they unquestionably, even as many poor people are being exempted. And by the way, the ratio of 50 kilometers per hour that is frozen is very small. Like Prince Ware said, in many of the urban cities, we have to be very truthful. You won't find many people under that category. So it'd be a general inconfidence. But the good news is that if the regulator and the policy managers use this tariff to really improve and push up the productivity level, like what Max was talking about in terms of stopping bulk billing, improving, reducing losses, improving customer care. There are so many low-hanging fruits. And of course, maybe in the medium to long term, there will be increase in capacity in terms of availability of hours, maybe more hours, better quality service. But the real thing here is creativity in managing all these processes to ensure that the people understand that, yes, there will be momentary convenience for everybody. And then government will support through other means of improving socioeconomic welfare. And the regulator comes out to show the people the roadmap, how they will improve the service of the operators. The problem with tariff increase in Nigeria is that service is very poor. And I'm not blaming anybody, that's the reality. And when there's shortage, the increase in tariff is a double taxation because basically people will pay more and not necessarily for more. You pay more even for less. So that's how damaging it is. But as a regulator, as a policy person, you are thinking long term. In economic theory, we talk about protecting the future. Future is important, not just today, tomorrow. Nigeria has to grow its stock in electricity. Nigeria has to improve the economic environment, get more investment, not just for today, for tomorrow and next tomorrow. And so this hardship should be called what it is. It's going to be hard for us, but it's necessary because the long-term effect is that the poor will pay more with that improvement in electricity. The rich may be able to self-provide for themselves, but the same poor we are trying to protect will pay more in terms of cost of gasoline, cost of generator, cost of other alternative to grid power. Ultimately, if we do everything right, this price increase may become useful in that the next 3-4 years, we might see larger capacity and then we might see gradual reduction in the pricing. But what must happen now is that the regulator, the policy managers must stand up because it's about leadership. It's not just about the pricing. The price, the rhetoric that price fix everything. In economics, there's a debate. Fix the price, fix everything. That's not correct. Price increase gradually damn a sector if you don't improve efficiency, if you don't improve collection. So I'm not a price fundamentalist. I believe that you should change everything together, improve governance, corporate governance, improve regulatory environment, improve quality service, and then improve pricing. I think that's the way to do it. It requires more leadership from NEC. We're not seeing the level of public leadership because if the storm takes off this tariff increase, then it will be difficult for this sector. We will not have access to some credit support from both international and private sector investors. We will not have more investment. And the discos who are struggling and who probably are not doing as much as they can will basically be in a difficult situation to even improve more. So I think we need a win-win here. We should find a way to ensure that we don't further stop this tariff. It's going to create bigger risk. By the same time, we must put in a lot of support system, we must put in a lot of assurance for improvement, especially a level of metering, so that at least let people control what they consume. In my office now, I can put on the lights because I know that I'm paying, even though it has increased, but I'm paying for what I consume. How about the thousands and millions who have no meter? How would this new increase impact on them? So these are the things, the conversation we should have, not just focus on price alone. We should focus on how would this price sit with other regulatory tools to improve the sector. But I think that we should accept that the pricing level in this market will not sustain improvement. And also the management level is low, the operational level is low, the policy level is also very low, and the leadership level is also very low.
Dr. Samamadi, thank you very much. I'm tempted to stay with you and therefore invite you to respond to the answers provided by one or the in part to the question I had asked earlier, namely that we used to hear as the justification for tariff increase what they refer to as cost-reflective tariff. Now, we are hearing that this is service-based tariff. In other words, service-reflective tariff. And in part, what Odi says, look, it is not sufficient to have an omnibus service-based tariff system, but that there must be accountability, there must be specificity. If you say that I consume 12 hours of electricity, at what time? Am I going to be in the house at 24 hours checking when the light has come on or when the light hasn't come on? What are the issues that we should worry about in the management of this whole new principle of service-based tariff, which you appear to be in support of?
Well, I think that's a very a great question. First, if you say service level, what's the service commitment from the DISCO to its customers? And so this is where things have to be broken down completely. For example, Abuja distribution company has to go to its clusters. First, tell us, publish publicly the areas. So it's going to be geopolitical. That means there's some part of it's geography based. So you are saying maybe we will have X level of service. You have scheduling of time of service. For example, when we were in NEC, we tried to force the DISCOs to try to publish, even without this service tariff increase. It's an obligation to publish to consumers time for outages, when you're going to take light, how many hours they're going to receive light, and so on. I think some are trying to do that. So if you have that kind of clear schedule, people know this is our level of service, and this is the cost component of that level, and this is the pricing level. So it looks to me theory to say that some customers in X place are not going to pay this amount of increase because they're going to have this amount of improvement. It has to be a compact. And so when you're issuing your bill, the customer knows that he falls into this cluster, X plus 1, that we have two more additional hours and regular additional hour, not just today, tomorrow you're off. So what will be the penalty from next side if a DISCO that has increased tariff on the basis of an improvement in service delivery fails to deliver consistently at that level? Will that tariff drop back to old So the mechanism, the data, we don't even have it. Even when we're there too, the problem with this sector is that the quality of data, and it's not just here, all over the world, the operators game the system. They have better access to data. So it's asymmetry of information. You don't have information. You need to have the information. How much are they delivering? For example, with this service level, there will be a component of monitoring. And so you need smart technology to monitor, and then you need penalties. You see, oftentimes in regulation, you do what we call damning regulation. That means if you get one error, we damn you for life. So you internalize the regulation to the operator who has more information and more control. So Abuja Disco knows that, look, if NEC patrols and finds that it failed in one area, then NEC will slam it with exaggerated exemplary damages. And so what that does is that it pushes back the onus of monitoring to the disco, who has both the information and the proximity to monitor itself. So what we might see to support this service level is an aggressive and very strict sanctioning enforcement, because NEC doesn't have the capacity to patrol the whole landscape and know when Abuja has made a mistake. But from its database, if it gets a complaint, then it has to punish it excessively. I think, to be frank, it'd be difficult at the start of this market to give customers value. We are not giving customers value, even when we're there. And now, customers are not getting the real value because we are dealing with institutional constraints in regulating. We don't have the information, we don't have the monitoring capacity enough, and then we can't sanction as we ought to, because we also want to pamper and nurture the discos and the operators to a certain level of performance, because we know that all that they need are not in place. So that's the challenge we have right now. And that's why I think that saying service level agreement tariff is not enough. NEC now has to come out and show to the customers what this means in reality and how they are prepared to enforce it. It would be nice, actually. That's why we call it incentive regulation. The idea behind the MITO is that all tariff increases or all improvements are conditioned on a level of service that the regulator accepts as, because you are giving a tariff based on an estimation of the cost of producing and generating and selling power to customers at this level of efficiency, at this level of quality. That's why the revenue requirements is X, and therefore the tariff has been shared across customer base based on the cost of serving each customer base, although there are going to be some cross-subsidy. But primarily the basis is that this tariff is equal to the cost of service and cost equal to the level of satisfaction that customer will get. And so we are not yet there, but we should be there quick, where tariffs really mean something, not just for the operator, but for the consumer. So when you say you're increasing tariff, the consumer knows that maybe costs have changed, there are new investments coming in that the regulator has mandated, and those investments will cost money, and therefore to ensure better service in the future, this is the cost tag, and this cost will be recovered through this pricing scheme for this length of time. More information, more disclosures. It doesn't have to be town halls. It can be in the website. It can be policy papers issued and published and made available, because the cost of going to every town and holding assemblies will be prohibitive. So today, even customers themselves, like people like Princewell, should organize themselves and stop looking for physical meeting with NEC. The regulatory challenge in a modern state is not that you should be everywhere meeting with people. Is that everybody should migrate to a level of knowledge where you use data to everybody plugs to the data. NEC, a regulator cannot be in Aba, Enugu. That cost is too much. Consumers should bear it. So when they say NEC should consult, NEC doesn't have to be in a room with everybody. NEC has to clarify its procedure, issue always comprehensive policy guide on reasons for decisions, what that means, so that anybody who gets those information, it can know exactly what NEC expect, what they should expect, and therefore they will to know when the discos are not performing. Some of the accusations against the discos are not performing, obviously, as they ought to, but some of the accusation is just being heuristic, it's just on judgment. People are not based on data because nobody is telling us what they should do and why the tariff is requires to be improved to do that. So for me, this is not the time to roll back this tariff. We should allow this tariff because of the long-term consequence of pulling it out. But again, we need to put everybody's feet to the fire consumers deserve and require to be given adequate information to be assured of what they will get. And then somebody will have to suffer consequence for failure to deliver at that level. And if possible, NEC can bring back, tariffs are not set to be there finally. If you're not providing the service that requires for a tariff, then if you're not making those investments, then you don't deserve those tariffs, and they have to fall back to original position. So I think we need greater clarity, and the regulator will obviously step up in the weeks to come to give assurance of what service level tariff means. For now, it's basically rhetoric to me, even as somebody who is part of the sector.
Now, cost-reflective, service-reflective tariffs. And, of course, you have noted that the discos are not performing as well as they should at the moment. But that also reminds us that at the very beginning, during the unbundling, there was this belief that the discos and other companies in the chain who actually took over the power sector had all it takes to be able to run the sector. Although along the line there may be hiccups here and there that made it so difficult for them to cope with the challenges and complexity of power supply. And I want to now ask a comrade, to let us know whether what the former NEC chairman explained, whether it holds water with consumers, because in all of this, consumers seem not to be part of decision making. They're not consulted whenever it comes to the tariff increase. There could be many other reasons for tariff increase, especially when they have been categorized according to the number of hours that the power is supplied. But when Kisler was asking question, he noted that, look, if you go to work, you are not at home, to be able to monitor the number of hours, you are giving power. Does that justify that, you still have to abide by, if it says you're on 12 hours, you are not sure you're on 12 hours, but then, because your area has been categorized as 12 hours, you are going to belong, you're going to pay, right? So, and again, we're talking about people in the suburban areas. How are they categorized? You are the consumer, and I'm sure you have your links. How are they categorized? Does that satisfy you as someone that protects the interests of consumers?
Well, my first reaction is that, you see, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe said that no revolution or reform can crystallize without the masses. That the masses hold the mandate to man's existence as a social animal. He made a comment again. He said at the early hours when colonialism was, he said, now that they have left colonialism, it wouldn't be good to replace it with black imperialism. What has happened is that the power holding company and the NEPA of the past has been replaced with a new system that has no structure to make it work. Take, for instance, the BPE at the initial stage when they were doing privatization, they said the state, federal and local government own 40% share in the discos. Now, these monies are paid at these consumers. The majority of the consumers are the local government areas and the states. Where is the data on payments made in those states? If I'm a state government, I'm a shareholder in a company, shouldn't I know how much is made from that company? If I'm a local government council chairman, shouldn't I know how much that is made? Like AEDC here now, the 6 local government areas in Abuja, do you have data at the local government councils to say this is the much consumers in this local government has paid? You will understand that electricity is part of human rights. So it's part of human sustainable energy for all. Now, what we see is that Nigerians are not really considered. Nigerians at the low level, at the local government and states, there's no structure at all. So if you want to generate data, for instance, you ask, what is the Ministries of Public Utilities in the states doing? What is the Works Department in the local governments doing? You are not looking at this period now. The MSM is the worst thing that will happen to Nigeria now is that the economy will get so bad. Under this COVID-19, between March, for instance, my office was closed between March and July because of the pandemic. And just resuming, many other offices have been like that. And most SMEs operate with generator. Now, fuel increase, 159 naira a liter of fuel, and then electricity is increased. How will SMEs cope in this situation? If you look at it, you now see that the economy and the people that drive the economy are these small business people. They will not be suffering the excruciating pain of looking for money to operate. Where will even the bigger companies get the money to pay? So what I'm trying to say here is that, first and foremost, there must be data generation on payments before you talk about cost-reflective tariff, whether it is reflective or not. Because the money that is paid on estimation and bulk billing at the rural areas, that is the largest volume of money that is collated. I don't know where it is reported. Now you look at investment, like Omodago community I mentioned now, spent almost 50 million to electrify their community. They bought the transformer, they bought the poles, they bought the wire. As I speak with you now, in the 2020 revised budget, my federal constituency, the federal budget, there is provision for 250 million naira for transformers in communities in that federal constituency. So if the distribution company that has taken over this sector cannot even provide transformer, cannot provide meter, cannot provide wire, then the community investment in this sector is not recognized anywhere. If World Bank give Nigeria 1 billion naira now, it will be recognized and they will be appreciated. But the communities in Nigeria are spending more than trillions of naira in rural electrification, in infrastructure and others, and they are not recognized anywhere. Nobody even acknowledges their investment in the sector. Then a disco comes in. The same community that has spent almost 50 million naira is now told that they are owing 21 million naira. And they've been paying. 2 months ago, they paid 1 million naira. And now they've been disconnected and kept in darkness for almost 3 weeks going now. We have petitioned them. But when will NEC sit? When will NEC Forum sit to address these issues? You now see again that the process of addressing consumer complaint is made to favor the discos. Because the disco keeps you in darkness as long as they want. Within the 10 days, you now write to NEC Forum office. You stay in darkness. If the onus is on NEC Forum office to decide when they feel like hearing your case. They may hear it in 1 or 2 months. So the consumer is frustrated and forced to pay what the disco wants. And the disco is comfortable. By the way, who owns these discos? Do we know them? How can a policy be put? Okay, for instance, since 2016, they abolished bulk billing. And there's no penalty for these discos that still keep consumers on bulk billing till date. Then you said, put meter on transformers to know what they have generated. You have not put meter in their homes, and you have not put on the transformer. Yet you are billing them money to be paying you. And yet we say that we have a system that is law-abiding. Why is the...
Comrade Princewill, thanks for your explanation. But I want you, before we bring in Fadipe one more time, I want you to respond to the specific aspect of the question by my colleague Kirian. Was there sufficient consultation with consumers before the latest increase in electricity tariff?
There has never been sufficient consultation. For instance, in Abuja here, the consultation that was done in Abuja was done in Merit House, Maitama. And this was supposed to be for the North Central. I asked them that day, how many states are present here? How many local government areas are here? Now, you've just done consultation in a room in Abuja where you have less than 100 persons, and you say you have consulted consumers. And the same thing happens to developing capacity of consumer groups, just like what Dr. Sam Amadi said. These consumers who will go and help you to generate data and do things need to have a good knowledge of the sector, especially the aspect of consumer protection and licensing performance standards. Now you see a situation where NEC, even a section of the NEC Act 2005, Electric Power Sector Reform Act 2005, said that regulation should be fair to all, both the consumers and the operators. But what you now see is that the regulation is fair to discos and unfair to consumers. There is no adequate consultation with them. I tell you, even the consumers at the rural areas don't even know how much they are charged. They don't know. They don't even know the complaints processes. And that is why we've gone to NAPTIN, National Power Training Institute, to come up with the Electricity Consumer Education Program. So that these consumer groups, community leaders, need to really understand how the sector works so that they can be able to key in. But what has happened is, you see NEC, for instance, say they are going for consultation. How will you fly from Abuja to Kano that has 40 local government areas? You sleep in a 5-star hotel. In the morning, you walk into the hotel and stay there for 3 hours and say you have done consultation. Who talks to the people in the 44 local government areas? Now, you have no structure in place to even get their views. You fly back to Abuja and now claim, and even many a times, NEC consultation, or even when they say they are enlightening consumers, when they go there, rather than punish the disco, get the complaints to punish the disco, they begin to say, okay, people line up, what is your complaint? That man will address it. Go and talk to them. They turn into a place where the way the consumers are treated is in a very funny way. And let us be aware that this privatization policy was predicated on the belief that efficient supply will enhance efficient payment. Now, the consumers will be able to pay. Investors are investing, believing that consumers will pay. But where consumers don't get the service, they can't pay. Even when you're talking of 12 hours, in the rural areas, I was at the village during the lockdown. I can tell you that light never came for 4 hours in a day. And in a week, you see it like 1 day, 2 hours, or 1 hour, it will go till the whole week will go. And then at the end of the month, the company will have the moral guts to bring bills and tell the people to pay. And these people are poor people. Many of them have no source of mean. Okay, even within the international community, there's what you call vulnerable consumers. Where did they factor in vulnerable consumers? The aged, the sick, the unemployed, those people that are really vulnerable. Where are they factored in this tariff increase?
All right, Comrade Prince Will, thank you very much. We're going to have to pause you. Oyobode Fadikpa, GM, Corporate Communications, Abuja, Leicester. Your plate is full, so start taking the items one after the other on the basis of the comments expressed by our guests.
Really, really full. God will help the discos and Nigeria.
Consumers are so
consumers, because I'm also a consumer too. I don't use alternative source. Are you sure?
That's a very good question. I wish you
your own is free. I pay. I buy recharge card. Anyway, I wasn't told to bring it this morning. Anyway, let's get back to business. Mr. Wonodu raised a very critical issue in terms of locations. In the coming days, we intend to publish that so that customers can know precisely where they fall into. But on top of my head, I can say that Maitama will naturally fall into the 20 hours and above category. Maitama, Jabi, Asokoro, and all of the central business district area. In the same way in the states, GRAs and things like that will fall naturally into those areas. But he also raised a very critical issue, and that is the issue of when will the power be available. Now, we can look at it from both ways. One, can I really tell you when it will be available? Not because I don't know, but for security reasons. It's also very, very important for us because you have, thank God, is somebody who is quite familiar with the power sector. Vandalism has been a major issue. So when you now say, I will not have supply on this feeder, I will have supply on this feeder, you are telling the vandal that that feeder is cold and he can go and do anything on it. And the moment he knows that the feeder is cold, it becomes double cost for us. But that is one side of it. The other side of it is...
So you want them to be shocked?
If the God of electricity will hold them accountable, fair and good, because they are really depriving you and I of what is supposed to be our benefit. But the other side of it is this. For areas where you can be very sure that availability is constant, of course, you leave some of your appliances on. Maybe, for instance, at least the minimum refrigerating sets. They are always there. So for that one, you may not be able to say, how do I know that there is supply? Because when you get back home, you find what you have kept there to be preserved. Now, metering and energy management. One of the things that this issue of tariff will also help to do, particularly because of the peculiarity of our situation. And what is that peculiarity? The inadequacy of energy. One of the things it will help to do is that if you are paying so much, one of the things that should strike your mind is, if I want to drop my budget, I need to now manage the energy. I need to manage it. Because for one thing, when there is no supply, whatever credit that you have bought is not running. The credit remains static. It's just like your phone.
That is if you have a meter.
That's if you have a meter. Now, coming to the issue of meter and estimated billing. Thanks to Mr. President for by stroke of the Penal Executive Authority, removing that 35% port duty increase. It was a major challenge. But with that removal now, meter asset providers can now bring in more meters, and that will speed up the process of metering of customers. Now, if you don't have a meter, what is the present situation? There is a capping on estimated billing. Admittedly, it's not the best, but the pragmatic situation, what is pragmatic in the current situation is that we must also be able to have a minimal accountability for the energy that we receive from the two other members of the value chain. It's very, very important that we take note of that. Otherwise, they also will not be able to service their own facilities, gas, the turbines, pay their overhead, and do several other things. I'm happy that he said one thing, and we need to take note of that fact, that the issue is not the cost of the energy now, but some other things that surround it. And I think that is very, very... So it means we are recognizing the fact that what we are paying for electricity is not sufficient. Once we can cross that bridge, the next thing is, what do we do?
So what we are paying, are you saying that even the hike now is not sufficient?
That was what I meant.
No, Fadipe, are you saying, you still have the floor, but you say what we are paying, so the hike is not sufficient?
We are in the process of getting to what will help us recover cost fully. We are in the process of doing that. I don't know what that means. Anyway, I'm not the moderator, so I cannot bring in.
No, please, go ahead. We'll bring in one on shortly, yes.
So I think those, then in terms of service commitment, I think that's another key issue. Because if you are saying I should pay more, then I must be able to commit myself to the availability of that service. Now, if we don't do that, what is the penalty? That is a major meat for the regulator to shoot. And I'm sure provisions have been made for that one, so that if the service provider does not do it, one of the things that will happen is that the customer immediately drops to the next tariff level for in the 5 tariff bands, except for those ones who have had their tariff frozen. The customer should naturally drop to the next tariff level. And that's a minus for the service provider. So he now needs to make sure that if he has said, I'm giving 20 hours in this particular area, barring some other factors, he should be able to provide that 20 hours. Then I think basically the issue of risk, okay, I think I've dealt with the issue of risk of security of critical assets, and then penalty from NEC, or when you are not able to meet it. In terms of monitoring of the system, again, that is within the purview of NEC to deal with. But let me say here that at the end of the day, the direction we are facing is that we want to have a gradual movement towards efficiency. I do admit, and I think it will be very unfair to say anything contrary, that we have not gotten to where we ought to be. We must admit that. 1. 2 is the fact that it cannot be the discourse alone that will bear the brunt, or the power sector alone. Both the power sector, policy formulators, customers themselves, all of us must be in this. Take, for instance, how is government helping to do this? Look at the Siemens project, for instance. That's a fundamental intervention. I made mention of what is happening in Nasarawa. Nasarawa, for the first time, is getting a 330, 132 step down. Once Nasarawa can achieve that one, or TCN can achieve that, as they are doing in other parts of the country, that will help us in our own franchise area. And I know that they are doing so in other parts. So once there is investment, which I know that, for instance, Port Harcourt just provided a state-of-the-art call center. It will cost them a lot of money to do that. It is from the recovery from the tariff. AEDC did a similar thing. It is from the recovery from the tariff. When we begin to put money into investable things and customers see the value in what they are paying for, the noise will come down. But right now, I do agree that they are agitated because they cannot match cost with service itself. I do agree. But let us be patient. We will get there.
Well, you are saying that we should be patient, and you are agreeing also that you cannot match, the tariff with, of course, the service being provided.
That is why there is this, what I would call disparity. Those who are paying more now, part of the benefit we'll get from it is that we can recover part of what they have paid, so that we can also raise the quality of service in those locations that are currently not at premium with their own type of service. All over the world, the rich have always known to subsidize the poor, all over the world.
Okay, well, The one of they also raised the point. I'm not asking you to respond to it, but I just want us to note it. And it says that, look, a shortfall in electricity tariff payments, 540 billion, which is supposed to come from the government. Now, if you are raising tariffs, it means that probably over a period of time, the shortfalls in tariff payment will also come down.
Yes.
And that amount, which is equal to subsidy, ought to be redirected to specific or noticeable areas. If we start interrogating that, it's going to be an issue. You've been in this economy for the past 30 years when they were telling you about fuel subsidy, removing subsidy during the military regimes. Oh, if you increase fuel price, subsidy will come down. We will use it for infrastructural development. You know the state of our infrastructure. A number of points have also been raised in this conversation. But you may wish to respond to those you consider more salient to your point. But I think that what Fadikwe says that at the end of the day, all of this is intended to drive efficiency in the power sector. Are you that hopeful?
I am. You know, what is intended by the tariff, if you look at it, makes sense. It should bring efficiency. But implementation is very important. And you know, I started by saying that electricity is a utility service. Utility means that you have to utilize it and do something with it. So I reject this argument about the fact that you cannot put a schedule for people to know how they are planning their lives because of vandalism, right? The service people must know when the power is coming so they can plan to use the power to do something. It will have a utility value for them, right? So cost-reflective tariff is different from value. And just to put it very simply, you can cook a pot of soup with 1,000 naira. You add excessive salt, it will still cost you 1,000 naira, but it will be useless, right? So it's not always saying that this is the cost. That cost might have no value to consumers. That is why the service must be there. There must be a predictability to drive its utility, right? So if a transformer is not serving me because it brings me power when I'm not home, if I see someone tampering with it, I will not care. But if that asset is serving me very well and my customers well, if I see someone tampering with it, I will look out for it. It will actually reduce your threat to vandalism because you have people who are actually invested in that program. And he was right, what Principal was saying, that it is when you give people service that you begin to see compliance to payment. It's not, metering will help you, but people might bypass meters because the meter is just ringing and giving them no service, right? So you have to focus on service. The whole idea is not to build call center, it helps. To bring transformer, it helps. But the basic thing for the reform to happen is that citizens and businesses can see improvement in service. Whether it's 4,000 that we have today, it doesn't make any sense to anybody. 4,000 megawatts, 10,000. What makes sense is when electricity is in my house, providing me power to do the things I need. So utility is very important, and it can only come with knowing when and when it's important.
Utility cannot stand on its own. I'm sorry to have interrupted you. I'm sorry to have interrupted. But utility cannot stand on its own. There are connecting issues to utility.
Namely?
No. The issues are important for you and for me and for operators. We will talk about that. We're talking about the issue of that basic service. We're trying to tie service to tariff. The tariff that consumers pay, what is it giving them? That's the end point, remember. That is the end point. The end point of this is electricity to the student.
Whether the tariff is commensurate with the service delivered to those who are paying the tariff.
And for the service to be utilized by the consumer.
He raised one issue. He said one is the cost, the other is the tariff. Is the service. The two of them, you cannot separate the two of them. One is a vehicle for the other. The investor has invested to some extent. Now, does his recovery match his investments? Assuming without conceding that the recovery matches the investment, then we can say service can be guaranteed. But we know the peculiarity of, I think with profound respect, we cannot run away from the peculiarity.
Comrade, yes.
We cannot run away from the peculiarity of our situation. I'm not saying things are normal. These are abnormal times. So you still have that dysfunctionality in the system. But what is the end point? By the time we begin to fix each part of it, it's like a car that has been left in a location for a long time. But you still need to use that car. Because bringing in a brand new car is a lot very expensive. So what do I need to do? I repair that car, use it for business a little bit, recover some money, and begin to save so that I can bring in a brand new car.
What? Let's allow one or two to land before.
Yes, I'm sorry I interrupted.
Yes. One or two, you were the flight, yes.
It's very important. I have not said that cost-reflective tariff is not important. It is important for the operator that he recovers his cost, but it must have value for the consumer. That's what I've said. And the only way it can have value is that service is provided at the time he can utilize it. That's the point I'm making. And, it comes to the point of, yes, we'll go out and put the geographical areas where the different bands will operate, right? I think that if we look at that, the regulation or the tariff order that just came out from NEC, it says over the next 1 year. So the publishing should be there, but the consultation must happen. Sam will remember, Dr. Sam, that we are talked about rate filing instead of just tariff. Rate filing is where you consult with the consumers and you let them know what you're going to provide them. And then they will agree with you based on their capability or their use, their load profiles, to agree what works for them, and then you can go to the regulator and file that tariff. So to a large extent, there is a lot of work that needs to be done, and then people will know exactly what is coming to them. And there is one other issue with our tariff. I think, and what I've been talking about is an idea where the consumer and the public can actually see what is an objective way to measure the improvements and things that need to be done. So if you look at our tariff, they provide this budget and say, well, this is for capital investments. But the capital investments are vague. So it's like you go to the Minister of Works and Housing and say, this is 100 billion for constructing roads in Nigeria for this year. I mean, how do you monitor that, right? So in our tariff, when it's filed, we should see the provision where it says that this capital investment is being put in place. Of this, a substation will be built in Gwagwalada over the next 3 years. People in Gwagwalada will know exactly that a substation is being built, and it will be tied to the fact that it will take them from 12 hours of service to 16 hours of service. So the transparency in the whole industry needs to be changed so that consumers and everybody can follow. Metering. Do not say, I'm going to provide 200,000 meters. Say that Kubwa will be metered between January and March. So people in Kubwa can be asked, have you been seeing the disco coming to meter you? So there has to be and it has to be published. There is a lot of opacity that do not allow the public to buy into the programs of the electricity industry, and this is for NERC and the operators to do a lot more.
What the problem is, if there is transparency in whatever policy formulation that you are implementing, that will make it easier and more, better for you to, function effectively and efficiently, then the public will not be with you. And that is why our friend over there has been talking about. So you may have a very beautiful plan, but this plan, along the line of implementing the plan, the public does not understand that what you are doing will be of benefit to them. And when you explain out some of these things, using some terminologies and technicalities and all of that, the public is still confused about what you're talking about. Because the thing is, if you're increasing tariff, then of course you increase your service delivery. And when that happens, then you find out that the consumers will not be complaining. Somebody who is living in Maraba, for instance, doesn't understand what you mean by when you're categorizing whether it's going to have light in 4 or 3 hours a day, as the case may be, right? It's until you are able to practicalize what you are preaching that they will be able to understand you. I want to be on the side of the public, right? So that we can. Yes.
All right.
I don't know how.
No, I'm sure. Comrade Prince,
you can't come in now.
Yeah,
we're about to take a short break.
And when we return from the break, we also have viewers who have sent in their tweets. You just stay calm in the meantime before you explode after we return from the break.
A new edition of TV Guide is out, featuring great personalities from all walks of life. Expository interview with a young TV presenter who shows passion on what she does, Morayo Afolabi Brown of TVC. Pick a copy of this compendium of mind-blowing stories and get abreast with issues as regards media convergence, leadership, health, star profiles, star programs, fashion, sports, human angle stories, and lots more. Meet some media professionals within our space who have paid their dues in no small ways. TV Guide, very incisive, very educative and compelling. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or NTA stations nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
As a strong immune system increases the chances of victims surviving COVID-19, a corruption-free society creates opportunities for citizens to thrive and prosper. Build your immunity. Stop corruption now. Report all acts of corruption to ICPC on this toll-free number 0800 22 55 4272. This message is brought to you by ICPC and NTA.
All right, welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, just before we take our tweets, let's bring in again Comrade Prince Okorie, who is National Coordinator of the Electricity Consumer Protection Education Program. I wanted to make a comment. You wanted to respond to the issues that have been raised, but I'm also concerned about something which we can take along very briefly. They say that you have bans for the tariff, bans of consumers, and then for the tariffs. If you get so many hours, this is what happens. And if the service provider doesn't meet those hours, the regulator can then push you back to the previous band or the previous tariff that you were paying. Who is in a position to monitor the number of hours that you get electricity for which you belong to a particular band? Would that also not be a cost for the consumer? And assuming you seek redress and you don't get any positive response from the DISCO, what further recourse do you have? Can you say you will no longer consume electricity or you will no longer pay?
These are the challenges. Let me first of all tell you that I, as a consumer and as an advocate who is encouraging consumer protection, I don't see any progress in this assumption that they will be made to fall back. If you look at the Electric Power Sector Reform Act 2005, offenses is mentioned in that act. Penalties are there. And the DISCOs have been failing in all these things and they've not been penalized. Is it now that they will be penalized? Now, I expect NEC to set up a monitoring, consumer-related monitoring team that can be able to look at these things. Go to Area 10, for instance. Go to Mog Plaza at Area 10. You see over 20 generators, very big ones, operating from morning till night. The business people there use. But you see AEDC people come there, disconnect them and be collecting 5,000 from each shop, even sometimes without giving them receipts. How do the discos even check corruption within their system? This cost-reflective tariff they are talking about, the leakages that their staff cost them is more than even what they want to collect from the consumers. So even when we talk about this consumer-related monitoring activity for this disco compliance to regulations, it's very, very important. Because what you see is a situation where the disco is relaxed. In Pape, for instance, most consumers in Pape, you see their staff come and say, pay me, they will give them 3,000, they will just go. They will put the light, the next day they go again. Connect. The guys, they will disconnect and collect money. This money doesn't go to AEDC. How does AEDC checkmate this? When we say educate the consumer, if you educate the consumers properly, they'll be able to alert you when these things are happening. But because they are not educated, they allow the things and even compromise. But the issue here is, I don't know whether these things we are saying here, whether NEC is listening or whether they can ever apply it. With the way Nigeria is now, there is a very urgent need to set up consumer-related monitoring team on electricity consumer issues by NEC. Match them with the NEC forum offices so that they can do a job of enlightening the consumer groups. Because in most communities, there are electricity consumer committees, electricity committees in most communities. They don't relate with the discos. All the discos do is let them be bringing money. Rather than just, and the NEC went and put enlightenment in the hand of the discos. Rather than setting up a consumer enlightenment activity and get civil society, the question we should be asking is, why is it that NEC is avoiding civil society groups? Even INEC that is doing election, work with civil society groups. During election, President Muhammadu Buhari and his party went to every political ward in this country to campaign. So why is it that electricity that's very key to our social and economic development, they cannot consult to the ward levels where they collect these monies? If there are centers, electricity consumer protection centers, set up in the states and local governments, these things will be reduced. So I'm advocating that if we really want to get this sector work, there has to be electricity consumer protection centers set up at the federal, state, and local governments. This money that NEC said discos should be using for enlightenment can be put into that team. And they will use it to do a better thing that will improve the performance of the discos and improve the welfare of the consumers. Even CBN that is bringing money for SME development. How can SME develop when they are being exploited in electricity? When their profit goes into fear and goes into estimated billing that is not justifiable. If CBN can fund that, it can also help the sector.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. As a matter of fact, you have said it all, on behalf of us who are the consumers, because well, we are yet to know whether you're a consumer or not, because we're not certain that you pay your own bills, because the way you are defending all these policies that are implemented in such a way that the consumer is shortchanged one way or another is a very big issue for us. But for now, we have tweets from Nigerians who are beginning to make contributions to the program. And I will start with Festus Akimboewa, who says that I think the increase in electricity tariff is justified because anyone who is interested in taking a critical and objective look at our electricity sector will find out that the sector is burdened with debts because the tariff generated by the industry is too low to cover its costs. Those planning to shut down Nigeria because of the increase in electricity tariff and price of PMS should drop the idea and help government to solve the problem of lack of investment in our energy sector.
Amogbala Humbabs has this tweet. In every part of the world, power is costly. However, such product with high costs should only be increased, that's in terms of rates, when it's made available. Sadly, however, the Nigerian case is not so. It's in this part of the world that people pay for what's not consumed or services not provided.
Mike Anyako says the timing of electricity tariff hike is not good. Nigerians are still groaning with COVID-19 pandemic debacles, and the hike will exacerbate their situations. Though we appreciate the reasons for the hike as the discos and gencos are operating at a very precarious capital outlay, it is incumbent on the government to immediately suspend the hike and find succor to the operators of the subsector in the short run. He said they may come up with the hike far, far later, but meanwhile, all the loopholes must be blocked to avoid leakages in the system.
Josh Chukwere says there is no justification in hiking the electricity tariff at this time and even in the future. Why hike it now when some Nigerians don't have it or even use it?
Law Alpha C, this hike may have good intentions for the economy, but the timing is flawed in the view of the present health challenge in the country.
Muntana Farouk says raising electricity tariff and the price of other commodities at this time when jobs have been lost and there's underemployment and unemployment also ravaging the economy is a wrong decision.
Oladimeji Morufu, either hike or no hike, there's no more power supply in Okitiboba and its environs since 8 years now.
Yunusa Idris says, what worries me the most is the categorization. If you look carefully at the classification, even the band A customer cannot enjoy 24 hours power supply, while the lowest customer in rural areas, band E, will only have less than 4 hours power supply per day, despite the increase.
James' next assertion about the takeoff of service-based tariff does not hold any water. What is the essence of introducing the prepaid meter? Is service-based tariff different from pay as you consume? This over 100% increase is not only intensive, it is wicked.
Ibrahim Tudu, so the discourse are now saying that they are ready and open to litigation. For example, if band A customers do not get the promised 20 hours of power supply daily, is this a new idea? Fadipe, let me read that again so you hear. It says, are the discourse now saying that they are ready and open to litigation? For example, where a band A customer does not get the promised 20 hours of power supply daily.
All right, from Akeju Olabaju said the tariff hike is welcome if it will increase the average supply per day at 8 hours to 16 hours or more, but I doubt if the current level of infrastructure can support that. The increase will cause reduced security light in an attempt to conserve energy, and this may promote crime.
Ibrahim Abdulsalam Bello, the problem is not with the hike in the tariff, but the fact that the populace don't trust any policy coming from the power sector. What you hear today is different from what you probably hear tomorrow. People need to be convinced beyond the usual doubt.
Ibrahim Abdulsalam Bello, okay, that's what I just read. Okay, Usman Banukatu, well, even if the hike is necessary, we expect that the regulatory bodies and the federal government should have taken time to adequately sensitize the general public on the justification of the hike before effecting the increase. Honestly, at this difficult time, it's unfortunate.
Adam Sheshi, there is no justification for a tariff hike because in my area, we only get 2 hours of light in a week. And when the hydro dams release water, it affects us the most. That's for those of us in Kacha local government area living at the bank of River Niger.
Okay, Stanley Okeke says, good morning. The service level charge is faulted and there are dependencies. The transformer could be faulty, repairs could be ongoing, affecting supply to the area. Better aspects would have been a flat, favorable rate for all, while Gencos work on increased generation.
All right, Kieran, those are the tweets that we can accommodate in the meantime. I just want to bring in Dr. Sam Amadi again. Dr. Sam Amadi, one more time, just a reminder, you say, yes, the tariffs are okay, but just for us to get a few things right. I was just wondering, you also argue that there's no proper time or right time for an increase in tariff. But take a look at our macroeconomic environment, and the numbers aren't salutary at all. Only last week or the week before, we got to know about the contraction in the economy, and pundits are indicating that the third quarter might also be a contraction, in which case we then technically get into a recession. Fuel prices have also just gone up. Inflation has been on the uptick for several months running. Look at the forex regime. So, and now you are having this pressure also coming from increase in electricity consumption, where for the most part, people don't actually have the electricity. And it's been a pandemic, as has been indicated. Businesses have been in the doldrums for almost half of the year. How do you, deal with all of this coming at this time? It looks like a surplusage of a hard hit.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think, like I said, tariff increase anywhere in the world. About in 2014, when UK increased interest tariff, it was a big problem. And when they did a poll as to why people fared badly about it, just a slight increase, they discovered that because they asked people, if that tariff was increased by Red Cross or NGO, will you feel the same? That's why it's no. Why? Perception that private sector is there to make profit. And therefore, the idea that regulators and policymakers collude to enable private operators make money. And so that's one of the difficulties of tariff, not just the technical issue, but the perception issue. In which case you can see that government has to struggle to balance things. First is that the impact of tariff increase for any general price increase is very clear. It might even lead to increase in inflation, if depending on how the tariff is structured. For example, if manufacturing sector gets hit high, it will increase cost of goods and services, all things being equal. And the implications that at the end of the day, it will affect purchasing power, the capacity of the people to purchase education and other essential services. And if you don't balance it with other productivity gains, it means that at the end of the day, it might also affect the general efficiency of the sector. So what we want to see here is how we balance this increase with, like Urumu said, with clear, objectively verifiable improvement in power supply. Now, if power improves in a rural area or even urban area, many things improve. Maybe those who do artisanal workers will use less of generators, and therefore they will obviously gain more in terms of how much they'll spend every month. We'll see improvement in maybe productivity for artisanal workers in terms of maybe carpentry work, goldsmith. Several things will increase. That's why we say that power increase will perhaps jumpstart, increase GDP growth. So that's important. But again, what that requires, therefore, is that government has to balance everything. Unfortunately, this is a very difficult time for government for fiscal policy in terms of revenue. And what that means is that increasingly, government is pulling away from areas of subsidy and investment. If you look at how much the bulk trader is being capitalized to ensure that we keep on paying those deficits, at least those who have PPAs, and to avoid, very serious consequences, then you can understand the logic why government has to allow consumers pay more. Because the point is that somebody pays for this cost. So whether it's consumer, or whether it's government, or whether it's the operator, somebody is going to bear the loss of the debt overhang. Again, government also, you can see that in the area of other VAT taxation, government is increasing its focus on allowing customers pay more and therefore finance production. So this is going to continue for some time because investment revenue is low. But what will happen in the power sector is clear. Three things I think I will want to say. One is that the regulator will be in a difficult situation dealing with acute scarcity and bad quality service delivery. Again, the regulator has to also ensure that the financing makes sense. Look at it in two ways, two ledger, two accounts to balance. The consumer's account has to balance. Like we are saying here, they pay, they get service. But something will falter. Maybe they don't pay, or maybe the service doesn't come. And that's why the regulator intervenes to remedy things. So we need to give the regulator some kind of latitude of, we should be fair, that the regulator will not pick all these crises, all these conflicts at a time. But what is important is that they respond to what Prince was saying in terms of ensuring continuous information. Urumu made a point. Before we left power, we made sure that the tariff is now going to be a responsibility of discos and customers. And the regulation on tariff made it clear that the disco should consult, not to consult in five-star hotel.
We just have to pause you there. We've had a very interesting
conversation this morning on this very topical issue that concerns the generality of the Nigerian masses. We'd like to appreciate you for reaching us via Skype. Thank you once again. You are the former chairman of Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. Thank you. Prince Wale Okorie, a power sector analyst and the National President Association of Public Policy and Analysis. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and wonderful too, because you are able to represent us, who are the consumers.
Thank you.
Rumun Daka Wonde, former managing director of Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading PLC. Thank you for coming. And Oyebode Fadibe, Head Corporate Communications, Abuja Electricity Distribution Company, AEDC. Also appreciate your insights. And on this note that we conclude today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. My name is Kirian Umayo. Have a great day.
And I'm Kingsley Osadola. Stay safe, be well.
In the rain?
It depends on the velocity of the rain.
Anybody who is exposed can contract coronavirus, but not everybody has a fair chance of surviving the disease. Data has shown that older persons stand a higher risk of dying. Are you 55 years and above? Do you have pre-existing health conditions? Please safeguard yourself and minimize your risk. Observe all COVID-19 protocols.
If you hear of anyone with high fever, dry cough, and difficulty in breathing, please do not go near such a person because they could be a victim of coronavirus infection. Call someone else or the NCDC to assist. Please use your prescribed medications regularly. Exercise around your home and eat well so that you can remain healthy and strong. For an older adult, to beat coronavirus is not to contract it at all.
This message is brought to you by Gerontology Association of Nigeria, the Geriatrics Association of Nigeria, and Dave Mokoro Foundation in conjunction with the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
This is the network service of the NTA.
The wise ones have said that man proposes, but God disposes. To some people, it's just a saying, but it's the truth. It's something that truly, truly happens, and I've seen it happening. Welcome. This is Thoughts for the Week with me, Cordelia Ogbe. Now, let's start off by, answering some of these questions. Do you have parents who maybe now have retired, have gone back to the village, maybe they're somewhere close to you, or your in-laws. You have? Now the next question is, how often do you reach out to them? How often do you care for them? Question. Think about that. There are people who believe that they do not owe their parents anything at all. That after all, did I beg you to call me from heaven? I was staying on my own jeje when you gave birth to me. Sending them to school, doing this and that. It's something you ought to have done for them because you fathered them or mothered them, so they have come to believe, so they have come to say. But our elders, are they very happy with this? Not so. Let me share a story with you that our elders shared with us. The story of the woodpecker. The woodpecker is a bird that digs very well into wood and all that. It digs very well. At a point, the old mother had wanted to see him. Oh, I'll see her later, I'll see her later, I'll see her later. He kept saying that, procrastinating. And then the woodpecker had this very beautiful plan that whenever the old mother dies, he was going to dig a very beautiful grave for the mother using his very powerful beak. And alas, the mother died. And the woodpecker, on that very day of the burial, had a big ball on his beak. And so the woodpecker could not do what he had dreamt of doing, digging a big grave for the mother. Our elders say, if your relation is dancing well in an arena, but you do not have money to dole on him, your hearty cheers would do. Put simply, you may not have much to give to your parents right now, but your encouragement, talking to them, talking with them, visiting them when you can, would go a long way. It would be like you are cheering them on for all the work they've done. We've come to see that in this region, and maybe other parts of the world, I don't know about them, I'll speak about this region. You'll find that when somebody dies, an old man, woman dies, you find everybody rallying around the children trying to raise money to do what? To go and modify their home house, or to try and build a house before they can bury their loved ones. That can be very painful, especially when, maybe when they were alive, you didn't do anything at all for them. Now let me share some of these quotes with you. To care for those who once cared for you is one of the highest honors.